Yesterday we added the peacock bass to the 1,200-gallon pond. Everybody is doing fine in there. Filter, everything's back up and running. It's actually later on in the evening, and I want to build some filters. I don't know why, but when I get the urge, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, or I'll just come out and start building stuff or working on things. So I do have, you guys will remember, we went to the store and picked these up. Today I went and got these. We're gonna build some sumps to replace the current filtration on the 120-gallon racking system. I gotta make something abundantly clear before we begin. I have absolutely nothing against these seamless sumps from Custom Aquariums. These sumps have been absolutely phenomenal. I do like them for a number of reasons. One, completely and totally indestructible. They're made of the same thing that like milk cartons are, so no algae or anything can grow on them, which is nice, like mold or anything like that. And for a manufactured sump that you would buy, they're relatively affordable in comparison to a lot of other things. With that said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I absolutely hate that saying. I don't know who come up with it or why people are skinning cats or need multiple ways to do it, but let's say there's more than one way to filter a tank. So when it comes to getting a sump or an aquarium for a sump, you've got a number of options. One, you can build it, in my opinion. When it comes to building small aquariums, it's far cheaper to buy them than it is to build them. Believe it or not, you really only save money when it gets into the big tanks. And for me personally, that doesn't happen until I get into 200 gallons or bigger. Getting them secondhand, for example, this 40-gallon tank probably run you maybe 40, 50 bucks, or you can wait for like $1 a gallon sale. I know some companies do that. Get it for 40 bucks. So I mean, costs on a sump can be pretty minimal. Oh, if you're not familiar with what a sump is, let me just do a basic rundown. First and foremost, you're clearly going to need to drill your aquarium. Now, I've shown you guys how to drill glass aquariums, acrylic aquariums, plywood aquariums, you name it. This is going to create an access hole, whether we do it in the back of the tank or through the bottom. This is going to allow water to overflow out of the aquarium. A lot of people don't understand overflow, so to put it into something you will understand, just take a look at your bathtub. Say you put the plug in your bathtub and you're filling it up completely. And while filling it up, instead of the water, completely spilling out of the tub, you have these tiny little things here. It's like a safeguard. It's an overflow that allows water to flow out of a hole in the back here so that it doesn't fill up. That's basically how an overflow works. When you shut the water off, the water stops overflowing out of it. Turn the water back on, water will start overflowing out that little hole again. Exactly how a sump works. Now, there's a ton of different types of overflows that you can install, whether you've got weirs, etc. I've gone over this so many countless times that I sometimes forget that not everybody has watched every single one of my videos, and if you haven't, what's wrong with you? So essentially the way it'll work is we have a sump underneath. The sump is just like slang for a container that holds water. Sump is a description of the container. It's not really the filtration system per se. It's just the container. The filtration system would be within it, and there's so many different ways you can configure these. Today's video, I'm going to show you probably one of the easiest. So an aquarium like this, if we look up over here, beyond the Anubias there, we have an overflow pipe. It's actually in one of the H2O overflows by Custom Aquariums. I know I'm going to sound biased here, but that's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, overflow system of all time due to its simplicity, ease of use, and, it's just very efficient. Although if you don't like them, I've shown you how to build a bunch of them. So essentially, we have this overflow. We have the sump. In the sump, we have a pump. The sump is filled with water, and there's a pump in it. The pump is constantly pushing water up to the aquarium. It's returning here. All that water has to go somewhere, otherwise we'll flood the tank, just like your bathtub. So it overflows out here, drains back to the sump, where it's running through various types of media. All that media is your actual filtration system. We'll have mechanical filtration, which filters out all the particles in the water. Then, of course, biological filtration, which takes care of all of your ammonia. Oh, and nitrites, of course. Now, the benefits of having a sump is, you guys seen, we have an extra volume of water. This adds to the dilution of the main aquarium. The more water there is, the less likely there will be fluctuations, aids in dilution. And then, of course, you have a massive amount of control over how your filtration acts, how much media can truly hold. I mean, you can truly add a massive, we got a 40-gallon tank here, 40 gallons of media versus a hang on the back filter on one of these, or I don't know, a canister filter, please. This is going to be able to hold a massive amount of media. We could put chemical media in it, whatever we truly want, and we can make it do and filter the water however we like. Anybody remember these types of things? Those have been around for a while too. When do you need a sump? Well, you can size a sump to whatever size aquarium you want. However, in my opinion, you start using sumps at maybe around the 100-gallon range, 50-gallon range, depending. Saltwater systems, they like to use sumps at much smaller sized aquariums. But freshwater aquariums, once it gets above 100 gallons, I like to start putting sumps on them. You can use whatever you like, but that's just personal preference. What size sump do you need? Well, let me give you an idea. The sump needs the two functions. One, it needs to hold the amount of media you're actually going to require. Plus, when your pump actually shuts off, a bunch of extra water from your aquarium is going to drain down to it. Now you can kind of calculate how much water that's going to be, and I like to use this. I go by the 1 inch rule. I never have an inch of water drain down to my sump when the pump goes off, but it's usually half of that. But I like to have half of that or a quarter, so I give myself a safety factor of 2 or 4. And to figure how much water is in an inch of your aquarium, just take, so if, for example, I have 120 gallons, it's 24 inches tall. 120 gallons divided by 24. And that comes out to 5. That means 5 gallons of water will drain down to my sump. Now, 1 inch isn't going to drain down, but it also accounts for how much water's in the tubing, the pipes, whatever there might be. 1 inch, or dividing your aquarium by the gallons by how tall it is always a good safety factor for me in using that 1 inch rule. So I need a sump for 120 gallon, for example. I need a sump that holds an extra 5 gallons minimum. Now, depending on the type of sump that I'm building, I need to account for that. So for example, if I'm running a wet, dry filter or a trickle tower filter, which means most of the media is going to be suspended in the air. That method of filtration, you can use the smallest size sumps because for the most part, they run with very little water in them anyways. I've got a massive playlist of about 50 or so do-it-yourself filters you can build, and it explains all of this in them. I'm gonna leave that playlist in the description below for those that wanna learn more. Anyways, you get the idea. Depending on the type of sump that you're actually going to be building, you need to account for that extra water that's going to be draining into it. But in my opinion, use the biggest sump you could possibly fit under your aquarium just for that additional water volume and dilution. And of course, with anything, there's pros and cons to it. When it comes to a sump, I've already listed a lot of the pros, but the cons? Well, they take up a lot of space, of course, and they can be one of the most expensive types of filtration. Not only do we need the tank or a Rubbermaid bin or whatever method you want to use, a volume, just a container that can hold water, and other things like the media and whatnot, which comes with which is of course what you need to add into your filtration system, but you also need to buy the pump. Really though, it kind of evens out to the same price as like a really nice canister filter. But just the part that we're building today, this costs 20 bucks. We'll say this costs $40 if I got it for $1 a gallon or secondhand. I didn't, I got it brand new. I don't have time to build a bunch of these aquariums right now. They're gonna cost me more to build than buy anyways. But you get the idea. We're looking at like 60 bucks type of deal. I already have all the media, but if you didn't and you're running a submerged sump like I'm going to be doing, which means all the media is going to be submerged, go to your hardware store, go to the barbecue area, and pick up a bag of lava rock. Highly porous media, fantastic. I got videos on that as well, and very cheap. You know, what, 20 pounds might be 10 bucks? Why am I replacing these sumps? Again, nothing wrong with them. But like I said, more than one way to skin a cat, and I don't want everything out in the gallery to always be using the same things. I'd like to maybe switch it up every 6 months, so that I can show you how we can run all of these aquariums using various methods, as opposed to there's only one way to do it. I want to be able to build things, I want to be able to buy things, I want to be able to give you guys as much information and knowledge as we possibly can. And if I just do everything one way and leave it, you're not really benefiting from that. So what I like about these drawer systems is they hold a fantastic, doing a review, amount of media, right? What's this going to hold? What, 5 gallons? But they also come apart, don't they? So you don't have to use them all, you can use a few, etc., etc. Now, this one single drawer system that costs $20 is actually going to build the components for 2 sumps. And there we have it. We're essentially done at this point. So, I'm using 3 of the drawer systems. One is going to be mechanical filtration. We'll add a bunch of polyester filling in here. I also need to drill holes through it with a little drill. I'm using a step drill bit because this drills through plastic, one of the easiest ways and the cleanest. I'm going to do 1/2-inch holes, and I don't really need it to be pretty. Now, for those that have seen me do this before, probably wondering, why did you make the hole so big? The water's just going to pour in. It's not going to pour evenly over the media. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about that in a second. That would be for a wet-dry filter, where I want the water to rain over the media evenly. In the media, I keep saying media, it's the biological filter media. And that media will typically be elevated in a wet-dry filter, and you need the water to pour over it evenly. I don't need that to happen. The reason I did it like this is because, now you can see it's actually level. Well, it's actually below level. We'll be able to put lids on this so we don't have much evaporation. With that said, top level, we put in some polyester filling. Below that, all the biological media. And below that, we obviously see a void space, and we might think it's a waste of space. It's not. The reason being is because the water level is going to be right up to here. Maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. But if this container wasn't holding this section up, that means that this bucket here would drop below water level. And that means that once water is pouring in down through this container into the next, it has the option to actually just flow out of the bucket. I want this portion to be above water level at all times so that it is forced to flow down through the media, which means we're going to need more holes under here so it can continue to flow through. And we're done. Now, if this container was above the rim of the tank, I'd want to drill in holes near the sides as well, some relatively large holes. So that means if the polyester filling or the cotton batting or whatever we're going to call it ends up clogging and the water level rises, it's not pouring out of the tank. It'll just come pouring out of those protection holes or those safety holes. But this is below the level of the aquarium, so I'm not going to bother drilling this container. If water overflows, it just overflows. So with the drill, 2 minutes of my time, it's done. I also bought these tanks because eventually I want to use them for something else, but for the time being, we're going to use them as sumps, show you different methods of filtering these tanks and just different ideas for sumps. But we won't use them forever. We'll eventually switch back to what we were using. Maybe in 6 months or something like that. I just want to make sure and show you that these types of things do work. So now I have to repeat that process 4 more times. Basically build 4 more of those. It's not really building, it's drilling some holes, super simple and easy. Then shut the aquariums down, remove the sumps, take out all the media, transfer it to those containers, which also have those large ceramic blocks in them, like this one right up here. You see that? You guys will remember these. I've been using those for quite a bit. Anyways, each one of these containers has a large block like that. I'll put it right here. So I've got a bunch of those ceramic bowls that'll fill this. The block, I'll put it here. So the water has to flow through that as well, and then pump right here. And of course, if I was running heaters, I could put my heater in my sump as well. Less equipment and clutter in the tank. Another pro to having a sump. Anyways, I'm going to finish the night off by drilling the rest of these containers, getting them ready to go. Tomorrow, we're going to rip out all of these sumps, hopefully, and get the tanks switched over to these sump systems, see if they work, see how everything goes. If you want to see them in action and see them up and running, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of these videos. For those that want to see it all right now, unfortunately it's too late in the evening. It's going to take hours in order to, I need to dedicate a whole day to switching of the filtration. So make sure you join me tomorrow and we'll get all of these switched over. It's a big job though.